Our feelings are a window into our health, into our overall ability to experience joy. I am Tavish Carduff. It is Emotion Week at Our Raw Material, and let's talk about feelings. When I was younger, I wasn't even allowed to have feelings. They weren't productive in our house. They weren't welcome. They definitely clouded all judgment and made reasoning impossible. I am a very empathic person. So this went against my nature in so many ways, and it's comical to look back on it now, me trying to be reasonable and logical when I was emotional, and my dad expecting that of me when just my very makeup wasn't very able to produce that. Fast forward to me being the person who is able to step back from emotion, recognize it, name it, breathe it, and let it pass. But I spent a lot of time stuffing emotions. It came out in broken fingers. I've broken at least half of them. Knees, ankles, toes, feet, you name it, I have smashed it up and needed to rework it, to the point where my skeletal frame really struggles to support my body. I've learned in recent months that I don't even use all the muscles that have been provided for me. I've shut some of them off by hiding various feelings in my body. So as I've gone through and chased them all down, I can see how unburdened it feels to let them go, to let them free. Emotions themselves are our first indicator of what our environment is reflecting. If our environment's making us happy, we're reflecting joy. If our environment is making us sad, that's what you'll get. We have crossed these signals so much in our body, we have shut them down and refused to let them out, that our bodies don't even know how to connect these things anymore. We look for drugs, we look for all sorts of external things to provide our happiness, especially people. A lot of times we'll expect other people to provide our joy, or we give them the power to actually take it from us by their actions or behaviors. So, our emotions are powerful, but we have been told largely to ignore them. We have been told, like I was in my home, that they have no place in our judgment. And the reality couldn't be further from the truth. Without knowing how we feel about a thing, we aren't able to gain proper perspective. As we let several feelings about a given thing pass through, then we start to see real reason. We know how we feel about different pieces and aspects of things. It helps us put it together and see a whole picture. When we get stuck in the emotions that we feel, now we're just triggering over and over and over, especially with emotions that weren't dealt with. I specifically have a lot of emotion around abandonment. You can be in a room with me, and if my mood is a certain way and you just walk out of the room without saying anything to me, I might feel from the inside like something's very wrong. And I know to look for that feeling. I know how to handle that feeling. But a kid or someone who isn't as in touch with their emotions might just feel it as anger or feel it as something that bothers them. Look for something that, or the most recent thing that that person has done to bother them, and then it kind of goes from there. Now you've got one person angry and another person not really understanding what they did to make them angry. Let's talk about anger, because anger is a secondary emotion. It's not even part of the spontaneous emotions that we have. Anger comes from not having other emotions dealt with. So by the time we've had several unresolved emotions, now we're starting to see anger produced in the space that those repressed emotions aren't getting light and sun and food or whatever it is that they need. Our society has designed itself in a way that disregards our emotions, that disregards the way we actually feel about a thing in favor of getting the job done or going along to get along or looking normal or saving face or whatever thing that my generation's parents and grandparents were constantly asking us to set aside in favor of, some standard instead of what we actually felt. And I can tell you that my kids came in flat out refusing to do anything like that. My kids came in demanding that their emotions be if not dealt with, at least felt and heard. And that was such a difference from what I was raised in. I really had to take a back seat and look at what actually was going in to what these kids needed and wanted. And where was this confidence coming from in them to demand being heard? And I feel the energy of our souls rising up, needing to be felt, needing to be heard. We aren't building our society anymore. We are building ego now. We are building ego on top of ego. And I think that the soul energy has just finally said enough. We've got to feel our way through this because we've built ourselves into a corner. What happens when human beings actually express their emotions, feel them for the second that you feel them, like a wave crashing over you while you're standing at the ocean, and then retreat? So your feelings actually have a chance to rise up, be felt, fall away, and be followed by reason. Because reason comes with letting those things have their moment. Letting our feelings have just a second gives it enough space for it to expand and move. Just like our breath, we move our emotions. They tell us what's going on. They are our check-in. They are our barometer for how we are. And we have each gotten so far off track that we've got to check in with a professional a lot of times to actually see how we are. Because sometimes we don't know. Our emotions are so unchecked. When we start to play around with our emotions, use them, feel them, breathe through them, you can see how easy it is to just observe and move. Instead of having to defend why you were sad about something or why something hurt your feelings, you just get to know that it did. And you don't have to blame anyone. You don't have to make it be somebody else's fault. You just have to realize, oh, wow, that hurt my feelings. And that hurt my feelings because XYZ. When we can actually look at it for ourselves, it doesn't matter who else we can convince. Because just our own understanding comes through more authentically than when we blame and when we shame. And when we try to get our own emotional needs met by somebody else having to change their behavior or apologize for something, that doesn't mean we shouldn't apologize. Absolutely. When we hurt somebody's feelings, whether we meant to or not, the very first thing we should do is apologize. And I know there's a huge distinction between apologizing for your feelings being hurt or apologizing for actually doing the thing that you believe that I did that made you whatever to begin with. I don't want to get that parsy with it. What I would like to say, though, is that it is not hard to apologize when someone seems hurt. That gives them the chance to breathe, to name their emotion, to just sit back. And sometimes after a person gets an apology, you'll even see their brain rework the thing, and they might even say, oh, maybe I was a little something too. We can't know where anybody else is emotionally. We can't even know where we're going to be in any given moment. How often does an emotion hit you out of the blue where you just aren't ready for it? That's how emotion is. It's spontaneous. It comes, it goes. And if we watch it and enjoy it rather than live in fear of it showing up at the wrong time, we start to change the landscape of what is acceptable. Watch these kids these days. They don't care who sees them emote. They don't really mind the spectacle that goes along. And in fact, I think they enjoy seeing other people share their emotions just like they do. I think there's an experiment going on where people are really playing around with sharing their authentic selves, sharing their ability to self-calm, self-heal, self-respect by knowing exactly what we feel and being able to actually work with it in real time rather than be looking at it in a chair in a doctor's office from some future perspective. It's so much easier to handle this stuff in the now. Emotions are not only our guides, but they are so interesting if we aren't so scared of them. I mean, some people, they hear the word emotion and it's negative. I think I used to be one of them. It's so funny to me now that we tried to avoid the very thing that helps us be happy, that helps us be joyful. We are afraid that if we feel negative feelings, that somehow they're going to stick around forever. Do your happy feelings stick around forever? And you wish they would. Trust me, these feelings won't stick around forever unless we pull them in and grab them and continue to give ourselves reasons to hold on to them. Our world is very full of stress and anxiety right now. A lot of this comes from the emotions that we don't deal with. They come in all at once and then we're overwhelmed. It feels stressful to even entertain emotions. So when we learn to practice with emotions, play around with them, it makes it so much easier to actually name them and feel them as they come up in real time. The challenge for this week? Pay attention to your stress. See what the emotion is that surrounds feeling the stress. Are you afraid of something? Are you excited about something? Are you worried? Are you scared? Take a look at what you're actually feeling, or the combination of things that you're feeling. Start to observe yourself feeling it. See what it actually moves like in your body. See if you can make yourself breathe enough to let it pass. When we can do that, when we can take emotion and let it move, then we can handle any memory that comes up. We can handle any part of our lives that we've got to go back and take a second look at, or 12th look, or 87th look. Whatever the case may be, when we go back and look at the more painful things in our lives with the ability to express emotion, now we can start to see how to support our inner self, how to draw the lesson and the value out of the experience rather than continue to be stuck in the negative feelings of the experience. Subtle difference, but a big one. And when you start to feel it in your body, you start to realize, oh, I can handle a lot more things than I thought I could. I'm really able to feel each of these feelings, name them, move them on, and then I don't feel stress. And even if a bunch of feelings come in at once, I can line them up and handle them, breathe through them. For me, taking a breath around every single feeling has been a lifesaver in more ways than one, or the things that would bother me, because now I see them for what they are, and I see my trigger. I see my trip up. I see the exact thing that bothered me now is the same thing that bothered me when I was a teenager. And it's that unresolved feeling of not being able to say what I wanted, or feeling like someone won't let me do something or say something, when the reality is I'm the only one not letting me feel at this point. Relax into your feelings this week. Thank you for being with me. I will be back next week to talk about listening. And as always, I really appreciate you being here for this conversation. Thank you.